Well, welcome back. I have decided to make another video, it looks like. Today I'm going to make a coconut stout. This one was inspired by, well, several trips to Maui. In the Maui Brewing Company, they do a great coconut porter and an imperial coconut porter. I'm going to do a stout version of that. I found this recipe on Homebrew Talk. I guess a blogger, fellow home brewer, Chancellor Hellman in North Carolina, my home state, has a web page that I'm going to post here in the description. It's got 5 awesome brew-in-a-bag recipes. I think he even says they're for beginners, but I can tell you they're fantastic, and beginner, expert, advanced, whatever you want to say, they're good beers. I did the rye brown ale on that web page, and it came out very well also. But today is the coconut stout. I'm planning on this being about a 6% beer, and the base is an oatmeal stout. From my other videos, I think you've gotten a good idea of what my process is and what my equipment looks like. So I'm going to whiz through most of the brew day and spend a little more time on the coconut edition. You ready to get started?
We're finished that.
Yeah, we're finished with that. You gonna help me brew?
Hold that.
I'll hold that. Brew day begins the night before, measuring out 8.16 gallons of water filtered through my reverse osmosis filter, and then heading to the grocery store to get some instant oatmeal because I was out of flaked oats. This is before this time, but I did a good-sized starter of Yeast 1056. And then I milled my grain. I did my typical double mill here. There's the recipe floating through. There's the oats. And I end up with the really fine crush I'm looking for. I then put my heat stick in my entire amount of water there, and I hooked up my mechanical timer to go off and kick on 3 hours before I wake up, so that when I wake up, everything's heated up and we're about where we need to be. Quickly add the bag and my minerals that I calculated here for a dark malty beer. And then a quick check of my strike temperature. Once I'm good there, go ahead, add all of my grain at once. I don't stir in, or I didn't stir in on this one as I went. Stir afterwards, plowing through all the dough balls. And then a quick check. I'm calling this one 155 on the mash. And then I put it to rest for an hour, wrapping up with some duct wrap, or duct insulation. I also pulled a sample for a pH reading, which I don't do very often. It came in a lot higher than calculated. I was shooting for 5.6. After the 60 minutes, go ahead and unwrap it. Give it a good stir. And check my temperature to see that I've lost just under 5 degrees, but again, I'm not concerned about this. I begin hoisting the bag now, and then I'm going to get my hop addition ready. This is the first and only hop addition that I'm going to be doing. It's a first wort hopping of Delta, Willamette, and Magnum. The recipe had just called for Willamette only, but I didn't have enough, and I didn't think it would really matter that much, so I was able to clean out a few old hops I needed to. Just shooting for 30 IBU. Get it out on the burner and take a refractometer reading. And I'm looking at about 1.061 at this point. Make it through the hot break. And after 60 minutes, while the wort's still hot, I'm going to add this coconut compound that I got at HomebrewCon 2017 last year. Because it was so old, I did not want to add it at any other time. I wanted the wort to still be hot to kill off any contamination that might have been present. It's also so thick that I thought the heat would help mix it up. Get it back inside the garage and hooked up to the utility sink so I can chill it down. As I'm chilling it, the garage fills with a really strong smell of coconut, which I love, so that was fantastic. Make it down to pitching temperature in no time with our cold groundwater here in Juneau, and then transfer it over to my carboy for fermentation. I just chose to agitate for aeration on this go. The OG wasn't that high, and I was feeling lazy. Add some of that 1056. I only put about a liter in here. I saved the additional amount for the next batch. I tend to do that, overbuild a starter. Get it into the fermentation chamber and set my STC 1000 controller to 19.5 C, or about 67 degrees Fahrenheit. A reading with the hydrometer showed about 1.066 for an original gravity. And about 36 hours later, give it a quick check to see that it doesn't look like it's very active just from the surface, but look at that airlock, it is bubbling away. This thing never really developed a krausen. 9 days later, go ahead and transfer it into the keg. Final gravity of 1.020 makes it 6%. Now I'm going to toast 24 ounces of unsweetened, unsulfured, anything, just shredded coconut. This is what the recipe originally called for. It did not call for that amaretti compound. But I did taste that hydrometer sample and I decided I wanted more coconut flavor than what it had. So I did this at night. The next day, I put that toasted coconut into this hop sock. And with the help of my 7-year-old son, I was able to get this shot of me in my pajamas, adding all this coconut to the keg. Just trying to be really careful not to touch anything, as all of that's been sanitized, of course. Don't want contamination this late in the game. Where there's the final product in a taster glass there. It pours a really nice thick foamy head, but it dissipates rather quickly, which I guess is somewhat to be expected considering the amount of oil that's in coconut, and I added a lot of coconut. That coconut, by the way, is still sitting in the keg in that hop sock, and I'm a big fan of the coconut flavor, so I don't plan on taking it out. This worked out every bit as well as I had hoped. I think that the oatmeal stout is the perfect base for this type of beer. You could scale it up maybe if you wanted it stronger, and I even think maybe a little cacao nibs or cocoa nibs might be the way to go if you're really looking for kind of that almond joy type flavor in a glass. That's good. As I mentioned in the brew video as well, the recipe, if you go look it up, does not call for the amaretti compound at all. Added it at flame out when it was still really hot, hoping to kill bugs. It also is just a regular coconut compound that Amaretti makes. They make a toasted compound as well. You probably could do that if you didn't want to do the coconut itself like I did in the end. Were I to make a recommendation, I would just do the toasted coconut, there in the pan, as the recipe calls for. If you do go and look at the recipe in the link, you'll notice that mine looks a little bit different. I scale mine up. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm looking for 6 gallons in my kettle at the end of the boil. I want 6 gallons there so that there's at least 5.5 in the fermenter, and then 5, a clean 5 in the keg. That's always what I'm going for. I'm trying to max out whatever I'm packaging into. God, it is coconut from start to finish. It's right there in your face, and it carries all the way through the flavor. There's a nice roasted note and then that chocolate as well. I would definitely recommend this if you're thinking about it. If you do try it, comment below. Let me know what you think. Cheers.